You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
It makes sense for your business.
Go to Townsquare for a free demo of the Townsquare Business Management Platform. Visit townsquarelocal.com. That's townsquarelocal.com.
The Gary Harris Show. You see him host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, here we go, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Of course, Chase Brumfeld alongside, and not just for my show, but Chase is here before daylight and works right on through midday. And I even heard you last week, I think one day, I was listening to Fowler, and you were on doing Fowler's show.
Yes, I was.
That's a really long day.
I love sports. I love being here. So y'all are great.
You get a bonus when you do that. Hey, does Fowler bring you in a little bonus there, Chase? Fowler, are you listening? You when Chase pulls that extra 4 hours now, you need to, you know what I mean? Keep that in mind. So, but no, just teasing. Chase does a great job. We're fired up and excited. This beautiful weather is just unbelievable. Although, and I kid a lot with Richard Scott, our chief meteorologist at WVUA 23 on the air. It's gorgeous as it is. I would prefer it to be a little cooler. I know people are saying like, really? But I like the highs about 10 degrees cooler than there. You know, we're back up into the 80s. And by the end of the week, we're going to be in the upper 80s. And I'd rather see those lows in the 70s. And eventually, I'd like to see some rain. I am worried about how dry it has gotten. But it's gorgeous outside. And when you walk outside in this kind of weather, it just gives you a little pep in your step. And we're ready to go here on the show. I'll run it down for you in just a second and tell you how you can get in touch with us on the program, tell you who the guests are. But first, I need to tell you, as always, that this hour of the Gary Harris Show brought to you by my friends at Alabama Credit Union. Member-owned and not-for-profit. It really is just a better way of banking. I should know. I'm a member. I'd love for you to become a member, too. Steve Swafford, the CEO, and the entire organization at Alabama Credit Union, community-based, all about not just financial integrity, but also about being a part of the community. Secret meals for hungry children, so many other things that they're involved in regard to helping out the community. It's a community organization in the state of Alabama. Alabama Credit Union. Find out more at alabamacu.com. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. Ample extra change in your pocket. All right, if you want to join us here on the program, it's easy to do. The Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, brought to you by my good friends at Pinnacle Park at North River, luxury townhomes near beautiful Lake Tuscaloosa. Find out more at pinnacleparknr.com, a gated community ready for luxury living near Lake Tuscaloosa. pinnacleparknr.com. The phone number is 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. Yesterday, the phone lines were hot. And they were coming in hot. And listen, but I thought we had a good show yesterday. Thought we were very fair in our approach. I want to say something right off the bat. I said this yesterday. I'll say it again this morning. I still think Alabama's a good football team. But that's what I think they are, a good football team. I don't think they're a great football team. And when you're a good football team in this league, you're going to be challenged every week. And that's where they're at right now. And they're 2-2 in the conference. They're going to be challenged Saturday by Missouri. They'll be challenged 2 weeks from Saturday when they go to LSU. They'll be challenged when they go to Oklahoma, and they'll be challenged even in the Iron Bowl at home against Auburn because they're not a great team. Now, can they get better? Sure. Do I still believe Kalen DeBoer is a quality head football coach? Absolutely. I mean, his record is his record. And, he played for the national championship last year at Washington. So I still think he's a quality coach, and I still have hope that this team can get better. But it has been tough the last few weeks, ever since that incredible first – about 18 minutes against the University of Georgia Bulldogs? Because, again, it was 12:30 to go in the second quarter, and it was 28-0. But since that time, still 33-7 at half. But since that second half of the Georgia game, Alabama has been, it's been a battle every single game, every single quarter. So it will be against Missouri as well. But I still think that Kalen DeBoer is a quality coach. I probably underestimated the fact that this is a major transition from arguably the greatest coach to ever do it in Nick Saban to a new coach, a new way of doing things, merging of ideas, having staff that was left over from Coach Saban, having new staff coming in, having to merge the new players coming in with the players that were here with a new system on both sides of the ball, systems. And it's been a little more difficult than I thought it would be. I mean, I said for the record, I picked Alabama in my media poll to win the SEC championship. And while that's still possible, it's unlikely. I mean, it's even with 2 losses, it's unlikely that Alabama's going to get to Atlanta, but you never know. The only 2 unbeaten teams in the league are LSU and Texas A&M, and Alabama plays LSU, so they could have a say-so in what happens there. They don't play A&M, but there's a chance that every team in this conference could have 2 losses. There's a possibility that could happen, and then it would be a wild tiebreaker. Right now, I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think that Georgia's going to lose another game in the league. Chase, I just don't. I know Alabama beat them, and Alabama's had Kirby's number, but nobody else beats Georgia. That's just the way it is right now. Nobody else beats Georgia, and they don't play Alabama again. So I'm picking, and they went to Texas and kicked a little Heine there in Austin. So I'm not of the mindset that Georgia's going to lose another game until maybe the SEC championship or the playoff. So that's one team, in my opinion, that's going to be in the SEC championship game. For Alabama to get there, they got to win the rest of them. Okay? And then they're probably going to have a little help. Well, they would have to have a little help because even if they beat LSU would have to lose again. A&M would have to lose twice. So they're probably not going to Atlanta, which is disappointing because I'm going to say no revisionist history here. SEC championship's a big deal to me, always has been. Saban won 9 of them. And I think that's a big crown jewel, whether you win the national championship or not. So it's disappointing to me if Alabama doesn't make it to Atlanta. Plus, I love going to the SEC championship game, Chase. It's one of my favorite games. I love that trip to Atlanta early December. Kind of already in a festive mood for the holidays, and you get to sit there in that beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium and watch the championship game of the Southeastern Conference. It's a great, great, great venue, like Nick Saban used to say. For him, he thought it was harder to win the SEC championship than it was to win the national championship, and he never, ever downplayed how important that SEC championship game was, and the proof's in the pudding. He only lost one of them, and that was his first one to Florida, to 2008. Every other SEC championship game Nick Saban played in, he won, baby. So I'm disappointed that Alabama probably isn't going to Atlanta, but you know what? I'm trying to be a little more realistic today in regards to the fact that I do believe Alabama can win the rest of their games in the SEC. Not saying that they will. I believe they can. Obviously, LSU looks like it's going to be really tough right now. But if they win the rest of their games at 10-2 with that schedule, I think they're going to get in the playoff. If they lose another one, I don't think that they will. Hey, let's go ahead, and I'm going to get to Derrick Henry. I'm watching him right here on the TV right now, just light people up like he did last night. 15 carries for 169 yards. And an 81-yard run against the Bucs. Also caught a touchdown pass for 13 yards. And is just a freak of nature in regards at 30 years of age, which, again, in the real world, 30 years is not old. But in football terms, for running backs, and to be that big and that fast and on pace to rush for over 2,100 yards, future Hall of Famer. I love me some Derrick Henry now. And we'll get to that. We'll get to, Marlon Humphrey last night, 2 interceptions before leaving in the first half with an injury. Bama in the NFL, man, it's a real thing. It's a real thing every Sunday and Monday. All right, let's go ahead and get to Jim because he's the only caller on the Pinnacle Park and North River Hotline. So we'll get to him before the break. And let me tell you, we got Drew DeArmond talking ball at 9:30 from 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville, and Kayla Anderson with the Titans report at 10:15. Also, audio from the coaches' press conferences yesterday at Alabama. But right now, we got Jim leading us off. Hey, Jim.
There's only 2 teams in the SEC controls their own destinies. That's A&M and LSU. They play this weekend.
Yep, and then after that, there'll only be one team that can. Well, technically,
yeah.
One of them is going to lose though, like you said, because they play each other. And
and here's the thing about it. Expand like 16 teams now, okay, and expanding. We're going to get the same argument as the who should be in the national championship back when there's only 2 teams.
Oh, you will.
You're going to have multiple teams with either 1 or 2 losses, and arguing who should be the team that gets in there. It's going to,
But that's why, Jim. I tell you why. I'm first of all, I was not initially in favor of the playoff expanding past 8, but now I'm for 16, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't like having a bye. To me, if you're in the playoff, you got to have to play the same amount of games as everybody else. Whether you're, so I would like 16 to 8 to 4 to 2, and I think eventually that's where we're headed, because right now you got 8 teams that play and 4 teams that don't. And I know you can say, well, they won their conference championship in a Power 5 conference, they deserve the bye, but I don't know. I don't like buys. I like straight like they do in Division II and 1AA. You got 16 teams, and you go from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2. So I think we're headed toward that. But you're right. Whether you expand or not, there's always going to be controversy. We see that already.
Okay, can you foresee it ever happening where these conferences getting so big, like 16 right now, that maybe where they could actually have 4 teams that play for 2 spots to get into the championship game?
Say that again, Jim. I'm trying to follow you.
All right. Just simplify. Okay, you got 16 teams, so you could have 4 divisions. Okay, 4 in each division. All right. Well, them 4 division winners play each other, at least 2 teams that go to the SEC championship game.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Listen, I think you already got 18 teams in the Big Ten. You got 16 in the SEC. It's conceivable that at some point, you could have 20-something teams in one conference, and this thing be narrowed down to like 3 conferences. I don't know. I think everything's on the table because, as I said yesterday, money is driving all of this, and whatever makes the most money is what they're going to look like. I look at that. I think that's the thing we need to keep on the table, Jim, is we're looking at it from a football standpoint, competitive balance, and what looks good and what would be the best, and they're looking at it for how much money we can make. Let's be clear on that. There's one motivation for the TV networks, for these universities, for these athletic departments. How much money can we make? That's the number one motivation. Don't let anybody fool you.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like I say, what's the use to have these super-sized conferences if you're not even going to play half of them during the year?
I agree. That's what I'm saying. It's this is not the best system. I'm with you. I think conferences should have no more than 12 teams. I come, and you do too. We come from an era where, if you had 10 teams in a conference, it was a big conference. You'd have 8 teams. Even some teams had 6 in their conference. I'm with you, but like I said, all this is generated by one thought process: how much money can we make? That's it.
Yeah. Well, what would keep the SEC going from 2 8-team divisions right now? I think that would be fairer than what's going to happen if we're going to have multiple teams, like say, with 1 or 2 losses and arguing who should be getting the spots in the championship game.
I got you, my friend.
All right, man.
Thank you, Jim. Always good to hear from you. All right, it is 9:18 here on the Gary Harris Show. We're off and running, and someone just texted me and said that they get buys in Division II and Division III. Okay, at one time they didn't. I know they didn't because I used to cover Division II. But in the NFL, I understand. I'm not talking about the NFL. I'm talking about college football. Should be different games. Anyway, I don't like buys in college, in a playoff. It's just me. But they've got them, but if you go to 16, you wouldn't. So I like the idea of a 16-team playoff. All right, it's 9:18 here on the Gary Harris Show. We're going to take a timeout. We'll come back with more phone calls, 205-342-9904. Also, we get into Derrick Henry and how he is playing. Man, it's just incredible what he's doing right now. Of course, the Ravens, too. Lamar had 5 touchdown passes last night, one of them to Derrick Henry. We'll discuss that on the other side. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Tuesday morning. The Tuscaloosa City Council will take up unfinished business tonight concerning the plan for a Sports Illustrated resort on Rice Mine Road. A large crowd of people opposed to that project last week forced the council to table a resolution that would allow the multi-million-dollar hotel, condo, timeshare, retail project to move forward. More discussion on the project is expected at tonight's meeting. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news. It's free all throughout the day. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special.
Make sure that we give that to them each and every time they come and visit us.
The sense of pride that we have in the quality, the consistency of our food carries over to everything we do in the stores. That's Taco Casa.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money. Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky today with a warm afternoon, the high 81. Clear tonight, the low 53. Tomorrow, sunny with a high at 82. Then very warm on Thursday and Friday. The sky's sunny both days. Highs between 83 and 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 57 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to The Gary Harris Show.
Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama!
On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:22, and all right, a couple things here I want to clear up. Number one, Cowboy texted me, and he's right. They do have buys in the lower divisions of college football. Doesn't mean I still like them. I don't like buys, okay? That's my opinion. And I think if you went to 16 teams in college football, I don't think you would have a buy. I think you would set it up. You could, but I still think you'd set it up where you went 16-8-4-2. At some point, you got to quit playing games. You can't just keep playing games. But regardless, right now it's 12, and top 4 Power 5 conference champions get buys. That's the reality of it. That's the system we have. Also, I keep talking about, all that's going on in college football, but like I said, right now, on the surface, everything is good. Listen to this, Chase and listeners. Saturday's Alabama-Tennessee football matchup averaged 10.7 million viewers and peaked at 14.7 million on ABC, while that evening's Georgia-Texas game averaged 12.9 million viewers to the network, making it the first time in 28 years 2 college football games brought in over 10 million fans on the same network. The UA-Texas game peaked at 14.1 million viewers. So people were watching at record numbers. People are going to the games. As I said, it looks healthy because that part of it is. I still don't know if all the stuff that's kind of going on, kind of lurking under the surface, is healthy for the game. But it's all about money, and they're making plenty of it. All right, let's jump out on the Pinnacle Park and North River Hotline, and Philip is with us. Hey, Philip, good morning.
Hey, Gary. I'm almost at the point now where I feel pretty good about making a projection on the top 4 seeds in the playoffs. It's real early, but I'm like you. I'm sort of looking ahead like you are, and I agree. I think Georgia, even though Oregon's rated number 1 right now, and they're 2, I think Georgia's going to end up being the top seed.
I do too. I do too. But go ahead with the others.
I've got Oregon being the number 2 seed. I've got Clemson being the number 3 seed. And I've got Kansas State being the number 4 seed.
Oh, wow.
The thing is, I've also did a thing where I looked at everybody's schedule.
You got Clemson beating Miami, basically.
Well, their remaining games, yeah.
They got an ACC championship game, just like. Are they in the same division? Either way, you got Clemson coming out ahead of Miami, and I think most people probably have that the other way around.
I think Miami's flirting with disaster. Okay. But anyway, Clemson's got Louisville, Virginia Tech, at Pitt. They play at Virginia Tech, at Pitt, Citadel, and South Carolina. Very, 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 very doable. Pitt might be their toughest game.
Okay.
Miami's got FSU, Duke, at Georgia Tech, Wake, and at Syracuse. Now, if Syracuse was outside, Syracuse wins that game. No way Miami goes up there in cold weather and wins. But anyway, it's a Carrier Dome. But I think what we're going to possibly have is a real mess. It's going to be a lot like last year. I think we're going to have a bunch of teams going into that last week with really good records, like 11-1, 12-0 type, or 12-1 type records. So, you got Georgia in that category. You've got Indiana possibly in that category. You've got Penn State and Oregon in that category. You've got Clemson in that category of having a really great record, Miami. And then in the Big 12, you got BYU, Kansas State, and Iowa State in that category. And then you've got Notre Dame in that category of having a great record at the end of the year. And then just think, if Navy beats Notre Dame this weekend and they beat Army, they're undefeated probably.
Well, yeah, and Army could be undefeated on the other side of that if they beat Navy. So, I mean...
That's exactly right. And if they beat Notre Dame as well.
Yeah,
they played Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium.
So there's a chance that one of the Service Academy teams is going to be undefeated. There's a good chance of that. And they're both really fine football teams. There's no denying that either. And
then to level it down another level from that, you've got Boise State that could possibly finish up 11-1. I think that is really going to be interesting because, like I told Barry and Wimp a minute ago, if Texas A&M were to somehow run the table the rest of the year and not lose and get into the SEC championship game, that means Texas has got 2 losses. What happens to somebody like Texas with 2 losses?
I think they'd probably get in if they're 10-2. Just my thought. If your losses are to Georgia, if Georgia and A&M are playing in the SEC championship game and that's your 2 losses, you're probably getting in.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought on it.
But the only danger sign, that's the danger zone I'm talking about.
There's a danger zone for a lot of people. I mean, that's and first of all, there's 5-6 football games left. So, like you said, we're just projecting right now. But it's but right now, Georgia, give them credit. I mean, they have stepped back up, and I tell you what, they look like the team. Hey, I want to get one more phone call for this break. Thank you, Philip.
Thanks, sir.
Good stuff. All right, let's get to Cam. Hey, Cam.
Hey, buddy. How you doing, homie?
All right, man.
Man, it's quiet up here in North Georgia. I figured out they would have lined up for me, but they're really quiet, man. They're not chirping because we beat them.
That's really, right. Georgia fans are going to be limited in what they say simply because no matter what else happens, Alabama beat them straight up. So,
hey, man, Nick Saban's still employed for the university, correct?
Yes.
Would he offer – I was thinking about this, talking to my wife about this yesterday. I'm afraid I wouldn't want him to talk to us right now because I would think he would light something in our butt that would probably be counterproductive. I think because he's still employed in some applications. So, I mean, I would want to go, Coach, can you shine a little light on your thoughts right now? And I know everybody's thoughts. Everybody knows what's going on. But I was wondering, do you think he's involved at all or is he just out – running around in Mercedes?
I don't think he's involved with the football. You talking about if he's involved with the football coaching staff, Nick Saban?
Well, just anything and any kind of application to earn that paycheck right now. Besides being the coach,
I think he's an ambassador for the University of Alabama. I think the positive publicity that he continues to bring is I think it's $500,000 they're paying him. I think he's earning that salary 10 times over with his appearance every Saturday morning on College Game Day. I mean,
so
he's still
you wouldn't have him a guest speaker in front of the team right now, probably.
Well, that would be up to the head coach. That'd be up to Kalen DeBoer. I mean, if Kalen DeBoer, I'm sure Nick Saban would do a lot of things if he were asked to do them. But if I'm the head coach at Alabama and I'm in my first year and I'm replacing Nick Saban, I probably wouldn't want to have Nick Saban come in and talk to my team. I mean, I'm trying to establish my own identity.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. That's fair.
I think that, what? I don't think that Nick Saban has been a burden to this Alabama team at all. And I think that I'm glad that he's still associated with the University of Alabama. I know it's easy to say, wow, he's making $500,000 for, what is he doing? But look at all he's done for this school. I mean, I've watched it from the time he got here, increased the enrollment. It just it's good that he's still associated with the University of Alabama.
All right. You know what? I think Kirby's the last of the Mohegans, man. I really do. That fire that Kirby and Saban used to have where he popped an eye vessel. This new coach, Gary, you know who I see? Living in Georgia, I see Mark Richt, a really, 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 really nice guy. And I'm afraid, in my opinion, you need to be an SOB in the SEC.
Well, that comparison's probably going to be made a lot, depending on what Coach DeBoer does. It's way too early right now for me to judge him.
That's true.
But we'll see what happens going forward. But it was, you're following Nick Saban, so it's not going to be easy for anybody. But I agree with you on Kirby. I think he's an incredible
that fire. I would love to see that or hear someone mic'd up where he just loses his mind and just I miss that yelling and screaming and I pop in just fire. I guess I'm just old, buddy. All right, let me run. I got to go.
Thank you, Cam. Good stuff, man. All right, it's 9:31. We'll come back with the Rocket Man, Drew DeArmond, here on the Gary Harris Show next, right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
You're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour.
Pickup or enjoy free shipping to your home on purchases over $25. Your new Academy Sports and Outdoor store is located at 4610 U.S. Highway 280 in Birmingham.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky today with a warm afternoon, the high 81. Clear tonight, the low 53. Tomorrow, sunny with a high at 82. Then very warm on Thursday and Friday. The sky sunny both days. Highs between 83 and 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 57 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
All right, 9:35. We're back here on the Gary Harris Show, and it's time for Drew DeArmond, the Rocket Man from 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville. He co-hosts Talking Ball weekday mornings with Scott Tyson and joins us here on Tuesdays to do exactly that, talk some ball. How's it going, Drew?
Good, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. Let's jump right into where Alabama's at. We'll start with the most recent game, a very disappointing loss in Knoxville to Tennessee, 24-17. Kind of a discombobulated football game for Alabama. There were certainly some good moments. Shut Tennessee out in the first half, but offensively just didn't seem to be able to maintain a rhythm and consistency and score enough points, obviously, to win the game. And then, in the end, Tennessee made the plays and Alabama didn't. What are your thoughts now that you're several days removed from that game, and what, in your opinion, was the biggest detriment for Alabama against Tennessee?
Well, they just didn't get good enough quarterback play. And Jalen Milroe is QB1, no question about it. And I'm not of the ilk that they should have made a quarterback change during the game, because I know how tough that is to do. I've watched it. I've watched, due to injuries, I've seen A.J. McCarron come into an Iron Bowl with the game still very much in peril, and it didn't work out. I watched Mac Jones be able to manage a game against Tennessee in 2019 when Tua Tagovailoa went down. Alabama still won the game, but it was not a pretty sight offensively. It's very tough as a quarterback, Gary, to come off the bench cold, and especially in an environment like Neyland Stadium where it's just so loud, it's so raucous. They're pumping in crowd noise anyway, and I mean it's just as crazy as you can get along, probably with Tiger Stadium at LSU, that you can have to experience. And so I just felt like, though, they left a lot of plays on the field. I wasn't critical of Nick Sheridan because I thought they designed plays that had people open. Certainly, there was some that was critical of the running game and that lack of production. But I think some of that had to do with not being able to hit throws early that would have loosened the defense up. And it goes back to your point about rhythm. There never was rhythm. Really, it kind of set the tone for the whole game, the first three plays. When Alabama went 3 and out, they didn't run the football very well early. You have a snap hit Jalen Milroe in the face. That's just a little bit of a miscommunication. It seemed like the noise got to Alabama early on. They did settle down and start moving the ball and scored first. And really, with the defense, as you saying, getting 3 takeaways in the first half. If you'd have told me that before the game, because I thought, winning the turnover battle was very important, I would have felt like Alabama would have had a bigger than 7-0 lead. But they just didn't execute very well. They didn't throw and catch because I think receivers like Ryan Williams, I know there's been a lot made of 18 targets, but he was open on several of those. They missed him. And I think there were some other receivers that were missed that were open. Very simply, I think most of the issues that came out of the game offensively were the quarterback, either holding the ball too long and taking sacks or not checking to the right play, taking too long, putting the team behind schedule, or just not throwing and catching. And, again, it's just up to him to step up, have a good week of practice and play better against Missouri. But I really think that most of the issues in the Tennessee game were from the quarterback position. Now, on the coaching staff, I think the coaching staff this week in practice, they need to go to Milroe, have a heart-to-heart. I think they need to, in some ways, take some responsibility off of him with the checks, help him with that, do that for him, much like Tommy Rees did, help him manage it, and then tell him to go back to using his athleticism because I think in many ways, I know people say there's some saying he's injured. I don't think he's there's a difference between being injured and hurt. I think he's in good enough shape to play in these games. And what these coaches are doing around the SEC, and you give them credit, I give Tim Banks a lot of credit, they're taking away those designed runs for Jalen Milroe. If they tried to do that a few times, Tennessee had an answer. But what they can't take away is when there's running lanes and he can just take off and improvise. And I think when he did that last year about the midpoint of the season, he really played his best football. I think he needs to get back to that, get back to using those legs. And I think in many ways when Jalen uses his legs, it can get the rest of his game going because I think he's just in a little bit of a rut. They need to snap him out of it because, Gary, I'm just telling you, if Alabama is going to, reach their goals and they want to have a chance to make the college football playoff, because there's no guarantee they'll make it right now, but they have no margin for error now. They've got 2 losses. I think it's going to be very difficult to make the SEC championship game. Do I still think they can make a 12-team playoff? Yes, because they have the best win right now over Georgia. But they need to win out, and they need to go 1-0 this week against Missouri. And the best way to do that is to get Jalen Milroe's confidence back. He's a captain of this team, and get him rolling again, because that's Alabama's best chance, in my opinion, to have the season that they hope to have.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You said it, Drew. The margin for error is gone. If you're going to make it in the college football playoff, you've got to win out. And let's just be honest, based on what we've seen from this team in 4 SEC games, they won 2, they lost 2. They could have won all 4. They could have lost all 4. I mean, and there's no reason, I think, to believe going forward. I want to get your take that this is going to be a dogfight on Saturday at home against Missouri, a Missouri team that came back to beat Auburn, but Cook came back in after being out and going to the hospital, the quarterback, and looked incredible in that fourth quarter. This is a game where if Alabama doesn't play well, they could lose it at home, I think. Drew, what about you?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Gary. I mean, going forward, any SEC game, Alabama, there's no guarantees. I mean, I do think they're going to beat the Mercer Bears, but hey, the other games, when you're talking about Missouri at home, a ranked team with only 1 loss, to a very good Texas A&M team on the road, and then you play at Oklahoma. They're struggling right now, struggle bus, but they're changing offensive coordinators. They're going back to quarterback Jackson Arnold. It's still a road game, and Alabama, quite frankly, has not performed well on the road in the SEC. Now, they did at Wisconsin, but they didn't in the SEC. The Iron Bowl is always hard, and so you do have that at home, but you'll definitely get Auburn's best shot, and certainly we know how difficult Tiger Stadium is. Now, Alabama could pay property taxes in that place because they really kind of dominated that series. But again, it's a road game against a team right now that, in theory, if they beat Texas A&M, could be in first place in the SEC. So that it seems to be getting better. So certainly they've got some tough, challenges down the stretch. But right now they need to be focusing totally on Missouri. Brady Cook is a good quarterback. He's been through the fire. You just talked about the toughness that he showed coming back to save them in a game when, in all reality, Auburn should have won, but Missouri found a way, and that's all that matters. They've got Theo Wees. They've got Mookie Cooper. They've got, of course, Luther Burden. They've got some very talented wide receivers. And unfortunately for Alabama, you're not going to have Keon Sabb. You're likely to be very banged up in the secondary. So it's going to be very important for the offense to carry their part of the water, because the defense could struggle because that back end is banged up. It also puts a premium on Alabama needing to rush the passer well, get Brady Cook on the ground, and then also force some turnovers if you can. Linebacker play needs to be good, because certainly they like to run the football at Mizzou. But, yeah, I mean, it's a very, very important game. This is a fork-in-the-road game, Gary. This is a game where you're trying to stay in contention for a college football playoff berth, because if you lose this game, that's pretty much done too. And then you have to take a long, hard look at who needs to play the rest of the season when you're out of contention. So this team is too talented to not be in contention, in my opinion. I don't think they're as talented as some of Nick Saban's teams during his tenure and even the last few years, but they still have more than enough talent to get in the college football playoff. And now it just comes down to, well, how much pride do you have? How much does it matter to you? You faced adversity, and how are you going to respond to it? Last year's team responded to adversity against Texas and then not playing very well against South Florida to galvanize themselves and start playing better and getting better each week. This is that time for Kalen DeBoer and his staff. For these last 5 games, you need to play well at Missouri and then start stacking. But the first and most important thing is to have a good week of practice this week, and quite frankly, take it out on the Missouri Tigers on Saturday and bring them back to reality, and then give yourself some confidence going into a bye week where you can get healthy and get your mind right, because it's going to take a great effort, as we know, to go to Tiger Stadium and beat a good LSU team.
Drew, let me ask you about something that's making the rounds here. Obviously, I'm sure you've heard it on your show and discussed it, and I have on my show, but I want to get your opinion. Going back to Malachi Moore's situation in the Vanderbilt game with what Kendrick Law did, slapping the guy's helmet, even though he was taunted, with some other things that people have pointed out. Do you think this football team suffers from a lack of discipline, and do you think the coaching staff is demanding it?
Well, I mean, they've had a lack of discipline for the last 2 or 3 years, Gary. This is not something that's just started happening because Kalen DeBoer took the team over. That if people think that, they're being lazy, because Nick Saban's last few teams at Alabama were very highly penalized, and almost in some cases led the SEC and were in the top 5 in the country in penalties. So discipline has been slipping in this program for a few years. It's rearing its head now. It wasn't as big an issue under Nick Saban because Nick Saban's greatness was he found a way to work around that. He found a way to continue to motivate guys, get guys' minds right, and they would still win games, Gary, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. If you win games, a lot of things are glossed over, okay? Well, Alabama's lost to Vanderbilt for the first time in 40 years. They've lost 2 out of 3 to the Vomit in the last 2 in Neyland Stadium. And, a lot of people – and now it's a rivalry again. It took them 20 years, Gary, 20 years. But Tennessee and Alabama is a rivalry again. No question about it. Tip your cap to Josh Heupel, Tim Banks, that coaching staff. They did a well of a job, won that game in the second half. But this discipline issue has been there. They've got to get it under control. Kendrick Law, love the guy's tenacity. I love his approach. But you can't let the guy get under your skin, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you off your game by talking to you, and you just walk away. And he was doing that at first. You got to just walk away and then let your helmet and your shoulder pads do the talking. And that's what Nick Saban always his mantra was, and they've got to get back to that. And this coaching staff has to put their foot down and just tell them it's attention to detail, guys, because I'll be honest with you, Gary, you brought up the point that they could be, 3-4, or they could be 7-0. So the margin for error is very small, just stop beating yourself and go out and win football games and showcase your ability. You don't have to talk to the other team and get into, a trash talking contest. Just let the scoreboard and your ability do the talking, and that's what Alabama needs to do. There's nothing wrong with exchanging a few words if you're trying to get yourself going, but you can't hurt your team by getting the stupid penalties that Malachi Moore did and then Kendrick Law did. Because Kendrick Law's penalty led directly to, not converting a fourth down, in my opinion, and made it much more difficult and then let Tennessee put the game away. And you just can't do that. You've got to play your game and you've got to be more disciplined. But this is what happens during coaching transitions. You've got to get people's attention. And hopefully now that they've lost 2 games, you have to come to a fork in the road point where you have to decide. Last year, I think this team decided after that piss-poor performance, even though they won against South Florida, that this is not going to work. We are the University of Alabama. We are a great football team. We're going to go out here and show it. And they did, with a lot of people picking Ole Miss to beat them. Now, they are a 2-touchdown favorite against Missouri, but you know the noise. You've heard it in Tuscaloosa. We've heard it throughout college football. There's people putting up their own TikToks and everything else like that. Oh, Alabama, they're finally done. They're finally done. Oh, joy to the world. Well, how much does it mean to you to show them that you're not?
Right.
That Alabama's still here. Alabama is still a big-time factor in the SEC, and that's what's coming to pass this weekend because there is no more margin for error. You've got to have a sense of urgency. You've got to go out and you've got to kick Missouri's ass and then move on to the next opponent.
Yeah, with that said, I mean, obviously the next game's always the biggest game. So, I mean, you and I follow the sport close enough to know that. I don't care what anybody says. If you, like Gene Stallings used to say, you don't think it's a big game, just try losing it. So the next game would always be the biggest game regardless. But with where this team is at, with what's on the line, I mean, clearly Saturday is, if you lose this football game, Drew, and it's gone. I mean, you'll still have a game to play in 2 weeks when you go to LSU. But as far as what this team hoped to accomplish, this game, everything's on the line. It's as big as the Georgia game, the Tennessee game, any game that they're going to play with what this team has at stake on Saturday.
Well, I mean, Alabama, the last 3-loss season they had was 2010. So, and that was a 10-3 season. And that was a supremely talented team. Their third loss, ironically, was in Baton Rouge to LSU. And then, their second loss, pardon me, because their third loss was the 28-27 loss in the Iron Bowl at home to Auburn. But that back in those days, as you know, there was only a BCS, and they were taking the top 2. So when Alabama lost to LSU, everybody knew they had 2 losses. They weren't going to the SEC championship game. They're not going to the playoff. So they end up 10-3. That's what can happen with the loss of this. If you lose this game, your best case scenario is 9-3, but it might be 8-4 or 7-5, depending on how you react. So, and I don't think anybody wants that. Nobody wants mediocrity. You still got a chance to, go to the college football playoff, or at least make a very strong case. Because if you're Alabama, Gary, you got to beat Missouri first, and Missouri's a ranked opponent. And no matter what happens, you get credit for beating a ranked opponent at home. And then if you can take care of business going forward, you would have some very good wins over an LSU team and then, and potentially an Auburn team. We don't know how Auburn's going to finish. Auburn may get it going against Kentucky. In a way, that would be good for Alabama. So you just have to stack wins. And you do have a win over a Georgia team that just mauled the overrated Texas Longhorns. So you've got a really good win right now. You've got a couple of losses that sting, but Tennessee is a top 10 team right now. Vanderbilt's the best team they've had since the days of James Franklin, and they'll take on Texas this weekend. So, again, all is not lost, but you have to take it as an opportunity to go get better. And these seniors and guys like Jalen Milroe, who I know have pro football aspirations, you're putting things on film. This is very, very important. A lot of NFL scouts are going to be watching. How do you react to adversity? Because you know yourself, you follow the NFL very closely, especially the Alabama guys. The NFL is definitely a roller coaster ride. You never know week to week what you're going to do. Hell, the Cardinals beat the Chargers last night. So you never know. How are you going to take it day to day? How are you going to respond to adversity? Alabama's had some adversity already this year. Now they've had real adversity. You lose a game you felt like you should have had, a lot of frustration. So how are you going to respond against the Missouri Tigers, who are a well-coached team? We'll see. And certainly we'll see how if Kalen DeBoer has his team's attention and if they can lock in, because we heard they had a good week of practice last week. It didn't translate to the game so much. Now they're returning home, and this is going to be a very, very interesting performance. I think this is you're either going to have a good first year under Kalen DeBoer or one where there's probably going to need to be a lot of changes if you end up with a 4 or 5 loss season. So this is the fork in the road to decide how good a first year Kalen DeBoer is going to have, and a lot is going to be on these players to go out and perform and back up their coaches, and these coaches have got to have these kids ready to play, because Missouri is going to come in hungry because they still feel like they've got a shot to make the college football playoff.
All right, Drew, I need you to keep this to about a minute, but I did want to ask you about basketball. Very impressive charity exhibition game at Batwell Auditorium last Friday night. Hung 98 on a good Wake Forest team without 4 players even being dressed. I mean, I know the sky's the limit for this team. We know that. They can win a national championship, but just your basketball thoughts as we get ready for this season of what we hope is another historic Final Four run and standing on the top podium when it's all said and done.
Well, just so much depth. 19 points for Mark Sears, but 20 from Aiden Holloway. Shot the 3 ball really well. 13 from LeBaron Philon. Both those guys probably will not be starting for this team, but that just shows you the depth. Same way with Houston Millett. He made 3 threes. Cliff Amore gave you what you're hoping. Rim protection, rebounding, did a great job. Sears is Sears. He does what he's steady as she goes. He's a playmaker. He's an All-American, in my opinion. But then you also saw Mo Diabate. He's a guy that, he's a junkyard dog. He's going to make plays. He even made a 3. He gets 10 points for you, does a great job. I just think you saw the depth of this team, and that's what's going to be the strength. Some guys are going to be, they're not going to get as many minutes as they want in certain games, but all these guys are capable. They ran away from Wake Forest late, really had them by close to 30 points, and Steve Forbes does a great job. And I think, this is an Alabama team that's as loaded as we've seen in a while, and I think the sky's the limit. They just got to stay humble, hungry, and healthy. That's kind of the 3 H's. If they do that, then I think this Alabama team can have a special year, and certainly was very encouraged by the way they played without some very key pieces in their first step, and can't wait to see them over here in Huntsville against Memphis next week on the 28th.
Drew, awesome segment as always. I really appreciate it, folks. You can follow Drew at 977 ESPN Radio with Talking Ball, and also you can follow him on X, pretty much that same address at Drew D at 977 ESPN. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, we'll be back to wrap up this first hour of the Gary Harris Show right after this.
The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up starting at 2 p.m., we're going to take your scores for Alabama and the Missouri Tigers. We're going to move past a little bit of Tennessee. Still some things we're going to clean up with that. We'll talk to Mike Detillier, and we'll take your scores on a Southern Alhouse Score Prediction Day starting at 2 on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest-running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after hours.
For better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky today with a warm afternoon, the high 81. Clear tonight, the low 53. Tomorrow, sunny with a high at 82. Then very warm on Thursday and Friday. The sky's sunny both days. Highs between 83 and 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 57 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for hour number 1. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Hour number 2 is coming up. We'll get to some more phone calls, and we'll have Kayla Anderson with the Tennessee Titans report at 10:15. Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show is on the way.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Monsi Bolaños.
The NBA tips off with a doubleheader later today. First, the defending NBA champion, the Celtics, will be hosting the Knicks. Then the Lakers are at home as they take on the Timberwolves, and it all starts at 7:30 Eastern time. In the NFL, Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels, his status for Week 8 against the Bears is very much in doubt, according to the NFL Network, because of the rib injury that he suffered in Week 7 against the Panthers. Week 7 of the NFL wrapped up last night with a doubleheader. First, the Ravens took down the Buccaneers 41-31 behind 5 touchdown passes from quarterback Lamar Jackson. Then the Cardinals edged the Chargers 17-15. And in hockey, for the only time this season, all 32 teams will be in action, taking part in 16 games.
Said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
Did you say you're cutting me off?
You earn We Match. Unlimited cashback match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, here we go. Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show for this Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld, Kayla Anderson with the Tennessee Titans report in the next segment. I'm going to talk more about the phenomenal season that Derrick Henry's putting together. More Bama football, SEC football, all topics that we'll get to. But right now, we're going to start this hour off with a couple phone calls. And first, my pal Robbie. Good morning, Robbie.
Good morning, Gary. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, buddy. Sorry I missed you yesterday. Sorry you tried to call me, but I just had one of those days.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, we, had the best birthday present ever. We got to go home finally after, 2.5 weeks.
Oh, man. Awesome. So Striker's back at home.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yes. Man, it was, I don't know if you've ever been in these hospitals, but that chair and that love seat they put you in for 2.5 weeks, the plastic, they're so uncomfortable. And 6'3", 255 pounds, just not comfortable. Yeah. It was great to be in the bed.
I hear you, man. I hear you,
My
brother.
back's all messed up. And then had to watch that Tennessee-Bama game, even made it worse. But, it is what it is. Like every Bama fan, I hope we can turn it around and ride it and get back to winning against Missouri, which is going to be tough to win on out. But we'll
It
see what
is.
happens.
It's there's a big chore, and Drew DeArmond and I were just talking about it in the last segment. Your margin for error is gone, Robbie. It's gone. I mean, there's no scenario where Alabama's getting in at 9-3. I just don't see it. So you got to win out, and hope that's enough. I think it will be. I think if Alabama wins out and it's 10-2 overall, and just 2 losses in the conference, that they're going to get in. But you got this game, and then obviously 2 weeks from Saturday, you got to go to Baton Rouge, and that's going to be a very difficult task.
Yeah, it will. If they just stop shooting themselves in the foot, just the plays that are uncharacteristic of Alabama teams, and which we all see that. But I hope they can get back. I hope Milroe gets back to playing his kind of game. It looks like he's a little confused, not confused, maybe like trying to be a drop back passer more than a run.
Oh, I thought he looked a little confused in that second half. I thought he looked out of sorts. I thought he looked rattled. I thought he looked unsure of himself. It was, it was not the Jalen Milroe that I'm accustomed to. And he's got to play better. But here's something that maybe I haven't addressed, and it's because you're always looking at the coaching transition, but they did have 26 players go in the portal. They'd have a lot of guys, go in the NFL. Robbie, I and others maybe just overestimated this team. Maybe this team just isn't. And then you beat Georgia and you really think, wow, but maybe this team is just not that good. I'm not saying that they're not a good team, but maybe they're not a great team. Maybe it's just, this is kind of just, maybe the talent level is not what we're accustomed to. When you look at the secondary, of course, now they got injuries, but, having to play so many young guys, there's other areas on this team where, even at wide receiver, even though they're talented, they don't have the ton of depth there. It's not a vintage Alabama team, Robbie. That's kind of what you alluded to at the top. It's just not the teams. it's not a team like we're accustomed to seeing here. And it might not have anything to do with the fact that there was a coaching change. It's just the portal and the draft and other things that have happened, maybe some misses in recruiting, and maybe this team just isn't uber talented the way that we're used to around here. You think that's a possibility?
Yeah, it is. But I'm on the outs. I'm looking at this team, and again, making observations. I'm seeing really good players, and I don't think it's that. I think the talent's there. I just don't think they're a team. And what I mean by that is I just don't think they're on the same – they're not playing together as a team where they trust each other, like maybe a free safety's not doing – he's thinking the cornerback's doing something else. You know what I mean? Like, it takes time to develop that chemistry, and with all the transfer portals and in-out and people jumping and going from team to team, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you're not on the same level with your teammates and trusting what they're doing, I just think that's what we're seeing. I've seen a lot of guys out of place. I think the talent's there. They're just not playing together. Does that make sense a little bit?
It does. It does.
Yeah, I think you got to trust each other, and I don't think they have that chemistry yet, and that takes time. I'm hoping it comes. They've still got 5 games left, 4 games. I don't know.
5 games left. 5 games left, and hopefully a playoff run. So,
yeah, it starts this week. Let's get back and let's. And I see a lot of frustration. I think that's what you saw with Law. That frustration. He, the guy was baiting him, and he did, and it should have been called. Not so much the bait, but he also threw a punch at Law.
No, it should have been. It should have been offsetting at the same time in that situation. K-Law's got to keep his head. You just that's the difference in having a team that possibly plays for a championship and a team that doesn't go to the playoff. It's moments like that, and if he doesn't get that penalty, you got a much better chance, obviously, of making that 4th down. And,
winning that game.
Yeah. So that's it's disappointing.
I think he was frustrated. Maybe he wasn't getting the ball enough, and he finally got it, and then he was frustrated he didn't get the first down. I don't know if that was it or what, and then our kicker finally gets to kick, and he doesn't hit a good one. When I feel sorry for him, he's a good kicker, but he's only made 3 attempts.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm with you. I felt bad for him, the fact that he hasn't had an opportunity to kick, but 2 attempts at field goals, and then you send him out there for a 54-yarder in that environment. Really? I mean, you knew that
environment. Yeah.
That was going to be a long shot.
I hate it for him.
But
let's get back to Missouri. Let's get on them. Let's hopefully they have a good week of practice. I hope the fans get behind them. And as far as DeBoer, I still think he's a great coach. I'm not trying to get rid of him. I'm not one of those but I still want him. You can't jump your players nowadays like Saban used to, but you can get on your coaches and jump them if you don't like what's being called. And I wish I'd see that some on the sideline like we used to see with Coach Saban.
Yeah, a little fire sometimes, not a bad thing.
Little fire.
Hey, Robbie, man, I'm so happy Stryker got to go home.
And thank you, everybody, for all the prayers, man. Yeah, it's great to be home. So roll tide, and I'm going to try and come see you Friday.
All right. Thank you, Robbie. All right. Let's keep it rolling now. Next up is my pal Franny here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Franny.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good, man.
That was good news about Stryker. I'm glad he's doing better.
Yeah, sure is.
You have Kayla Anderson on the next segment.
I do.
We just played Tennessee. Will you ask her something?
Yeah, I'll try.
Tennessee went for it, coming out of the locker room. 4th and 2 on their own 38-yard line, and they were up 10-7. Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's a good, great question. And they turned the game around, and they never let again, did they, Franny?
No, the ceiling caved in. I mean, I'm glad because I'm a Bills fan, as you know, and we needed that break. But that's just something that you don't do.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
But
at all.
I think Amari Cooper's going to help a lot.
Oh, absolutely, he is.
I heard you guys talking about Alabama. I couldn't decide if you were talking about Alabama or the New York Jets with the talent and no chemistry. Sounds about like the same team.
It does a little bit. It sure does. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I think Buffalo win 11, 12 games. I don't know. We're not as good as Baltimore or Kansas City, but I think we'll make the playoffs, and we'll see what happens after that.
All right, Franny.
All right, see ya.
Appreciate it, buddy, very much. Yeah, and I'll ask her. That's right, it was. The Bills Titans had the lead there at halftime over the Bills, and then, like he said, it just caved in, and that going for it on 4th and 2 at the 38, up 10-7. Just that's interesting decision for sure. All right, it's 11 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock, and before we get to the break, I do want to talk to you about my friends at the YMCA of Tuscaloosa. The Y is ready when you're ready for the Y. I was in there yesterday. I'm going back again today as soon as my show's over, get another workout in. And just love that place, love the people, love the community of people. And that's what it is. You're not only working out and trying to work toward better health, but you're meeting people. And a lot of people make business connections, social connections. Just an outstanding facility, and has been for years. I was a member when they had the old location, and now at 2300 13th Street downtown. I've been there. I think they moved there in 2016 or 2015, somewhere in there. Time flies. But get by and see them at the Y. They'll give you a tour, and they will.
Now you can get Cox Internet and one unlimited mobile line for $80 a month, all with Wi-Fi equipment included and no annual contract. If only getting it all was always that easy. Like having a night out and getting a good night's sleep. Get it all with Cox. Get Cox Internet and one unlimited mobile line for $80 a month. Visit cox.com/value. Limited time offer for new customers only. No annual contract means no minimum term agreement and no early termination fees. Additional restrictions apply.
9 North in Northport, just before Carroll's Creek Baptist Church. Sponsored by Black Warrior Marine, Castaway Fish Co., Riverside Feed and Seed, and Adams Heating and Cooling.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky today with a warm afternoon, the high 81. Clear tonight, the low 53. Tomorrow, sunny with a high at 82. Then very warm on Thursday and Friday. The sky sunny both days. Highs between 83 and 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 65 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Want to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Download the Tide 100.9 app today.
All right, 10:15. Welcome back into the show, and it's time for Kayla Anderson with the Tennessee Titans report from there in Nashville. 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will weekday mornings, and we're going to talk a little Tennessee Titans. Good morning, Kayla. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you guys doing?
Right off the bat, Franny just called in and wanted me to ask you, and we'll get into the game and quarterback situation and all that, and I was trying to monitor a bunch of games on Red Zone like I do. So, Titans had a good first half, got a 10-7 lead there in the third quarter. He wanted me to ask you about the decision to go for it on 4th and 2 at the 38, up 10-7.
Yeah, I think the things that we talked about on our show, at least this week, when it came to details and some of the things that were brought up in the second half that has been an issue for this team is, that's definitely one of them. And I think a lot of people, including myself, would probably say not the right decision to do that. But then again, this is a team right now that you've got a head coach that is, in a way, learning on the fly to how to be a head coach and, what decisions to go with analytics and what decisions to go with the gut. And this is kind of what he's working through this season, which that's part of the frustration because not a lot else is working for them. So when you have decisions like that, they're going to get scrutinized even more. There's also been, some issues with clock management, especially, towards the end of the second half there, or the first half of that game. So, yeah, that was one of the decisions that I think some people were not exactly happy with. But then again, it's easy to get frustrated with this team about anything right now just because they're not winning.
They're not doing that, and they're 1-5, and now you go to Detroit, who is, in the conversation for best team in the league. But Mason Rudolph, and of course, you had told me last week that Callahan was staying firm with Levis, but then Levis, they said, they being the Titans, had a throwing shoulder injury. Rudolph gets a start and, seemed to play fairly well in the first half. What is the quarterback situation? And Is Levis expected to be back? I mean, what's going on there?
Yeah, so Levis is right now, according to reports that we have heard, specifically the report from Adam Schefter was it's a grade 2 sprain with that shoulder, with his right shoulder, his throwing shoulder. And so that does affect what you're able to do out there. And if you're able to, throw those deep balls or just being able to maintain your accuracy throughout a game. So what Brian Callahan told us on Monday, because a lot of people were confused with the whole situation, because he played in the game before this, coming out of the bye week, and against the Colts, and didn't look great. And then after the game said, I couldn't make all the throws because the shoulder it was a bit of an issue. So then why the heck did he get, why did he play? Why did he start then? And so that question was asked Monday. Brian Callahan pretty much said that he felt after the bye week, Will Levis was healthy. He was ready to go. Leading up to that week with practice, he was still fine. And then as the game went on, he started to feel the shoulder soreness pop in. And then towards the end of the game, it was clearly bugging him. So then on the next week, preparing for this last weekend's game, they were putting him as limited on Wednesday just to see how he was doing. Didn't feel great. So he said, we're going to just try to see if he can make all the throws in practice on Thursday. It was like a full go. Like, we'll have him make all the throws, see what he can do. It was not good. And so he was questionable on Friday. And then they just decided on Saturday, that's when they told Mason Rudolph he was going to start. So I guess it was a thing where the shoulder probably wasn't 100% ever after it was injured, but they felt like it was good enough, and then it got kind of retweaked in that game. So now he's week to week. And I don't foresee him necessarily playing this weekend, Gary, just because I think why continue to make it worse? Those sprains, if they're grade 2 even, you're usually out 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Looks like he was almost rushed back in, probably not because Callahan and them were like, yeah, you need to go back in, but because Will Levis is that type of guy where he's going to play injured. And maybe that whole thing with the training staff and making sure you made the right smart decision, maybe it was a decision they were just trusting Will Levis.
Kayla, again, and there's a lot of football left, but let's be honest, realistically, the Titans look like they're going nowhere fast. How much disappointment is there in Nashville from the standpoint that you and I both know Mike Vrabel was a really good coach, but it had gotten stale. The decision to move on from him, move on from Derrick Henry, this fresh start, this young, innovative head coach, offensive-minded head coach. He brings in his dad, the strong, offensive line coach, and you're just feeling like it would have been better than this so far. It wouldn't be 1-5, and now looking like it's just going to be a brutal season. Have the fans just already kind of moved on to Vanderbilt and Tennessee football, or is there still some hope that this team can turn it around?
No, there's definitely a shift. And again, this is the first time in 8 years I've really had to deal with this dire of a situation. And I say that because it started at the start of the season with them not being good, and it's not improved. And I think in the past, we've kind of seen this team go through some ups and downs, but then they kind of come back at the end of the season and start winning. Or even in the last year when things really disintegrated, you at least kind of had the talking points of, okay, what do they do next? Do you have a coaching change, which clearly happened? There were other things that talked about and that fans had interest in. Now it's just like, okay, well, we reset everything. We brought in a new head coach. We brought in a new staff. We brought in new pieces. And now we're still struggling to get the second win of the season. And so I think fans at this point are very frustrated because I think while they're going to give Will Levis probably the rest of the season to figure out if he is the guy, I think fans kind of have already made up their mind that he's not the guy. Mm-hmm. So why would they continue to watch a team that's probably not going to win much more in terms of 11 games left in the season. They haven't even won at home yet. And then you're still going to continue to put Will Levis out there. And even if it's not Will Levis, Mason Rudolph has had good moments, but I don't think he's going out there stretch enough games to be a team that you want to be interested in. So it's a concern right now with the fan base, and so much so that we have heard some of those Vrabel, people come out of the woodwork and say, well, now, are you happy that we fired Mike Vrabel? And, a lot of the people are like, are you happy that we got rid of Derrick Henry now? Because now he's going and balling out for the Ravens, and, he could have been on our team. So all of these, fans, too, are coming out of the woodwork that are like, well, if this could have still been the situation.
Let's get to Henry because he is, looking phenomenal and headed toward potentially a career season, which is saying something for him. He's on pace for over 2,100 yards. I'm assuming, Kayla, that most Titans fans are happy for him. There was a lot of discussion that he had slowed down, and now it's obvious he hadn't, and this has been a new opportunity for him with a great team, and maybe he did look sluggish some with Tennessee just because, the offense was so bad. But what's the vibe there? Most fans just happy for him, hoping he wins a Super Bowl, or like you said, are most fans bitter that he's no longer with the organization?
I mean, honestly, most fans are happy for him. I think that they're crushed with not having him in the two-tone blue, but I think that they are now really realizing what this team's, future is, at least for this season, and knowing that even if Derrick Henry was here behind this offensive line who's still trying to figure it out and not a weapon at quarterback or somebody who can help you like Lamar Jackson is helping Derrick Henry, that it is going to be kind of a lose-lose situation for Derrick Henry. And I think a lot of people, because he spent 8 years here and probably was the most consistent piece the Titans have had in a long time, they're happy for him because they do want to see him, win a Super Bowl for his own good and get that, Hall of Fame vote. So I think that overall fans are really, truly happy for him, but it does probably sting knowing that he's not in the two-tone blue and won't retire probably in the two-tone blue. And on top of it, your team right now is probably one of the worst teams in the NFL, and their team is probably one of the best.
Kayla Anderson with us from WKRN 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. Ramon, Kayla will weekday mornings talking Tennessee Titans with us as she does every week. Couple more questions for Kayla on the Titans, and then we'll talk a little bit of college football real quickly. But first, you're trying to get this team going. Quarterback situation's a mess. And as I said, now you go to Detroit. I mean, on paper, this one could get ugly. I mean, ugly.
Yeah, and Gary, it's crazy, too, because we're at the point, just taking you inside doing our radio show, we're at the point that X's and O's for us, like, we can't even discuss that and have interest in it right now because people just know what this is probably going to be in terms of an outcome.
Yeah.
And you had it with the Buffalo Bills, last weekend. While, yes, they were showing some sort of life in the first half, the issue with this team, Gary, has been the second half. They completely collapse in the second half. If one thing goes wrong coming out of the half, or if one thing goes wrong where they have the other team take the lead, they collapse. I mean, it's almost like unidentifiable as somebody who's on the outside looking in. Like, how can this be every single time it's the same type of issues? And that's why I think at this point, when you're taking on a Detroit team who just beat the Vikings, by the way, and leaves the Chiefs now as the only undefeated team in the NFL, it's at their place. They have completely turned this, organization around. Dan Campbell has just done such a great job with even all the injuries that they've had to just be like next man up mentality. And so this could be a really brutal game and another situation where you're losing confidence in your team. Gary, I mean, it's so bad that yesterday Nick Vanette, one of the veteran tight ends that was brought over here this last season, he even kind of alluded to the fact that there is disinterest in the sideline when the second half hits. It's almost like it goes dead. There's no life in that side on the sideline. And I think it's transferring over to the locker room as well. I think that you're just seeing a lot of disconnect from this team, and that's hard to even go into a game like this and try to get up for a game like this when there's so many other issues right now because this team's just totally lost its confidence.
Yeah, and there was so much excitement and enthusiasm going into the season, and already 6 games in. I guess I could ask you the question, final question on the Titans, and then, it's early, but is there a feeling that Coach Callahan may be in over his head?
I think what we're going to see about that, and I think that's a great question to ask because we do have fans actually asking this. Honestly, asking about management in general. I think, though, what's going to happen is, Amy Adams Strunk, the owner, has pretty much, for the most part, stayed out of football decisions when it comes to in-game or season decisions. But she will pull the trigger when she feels like she is being embarrassed as an owner, and that's what we saw last year with Mike Vrabel. I think that enough was enough with maybe some of the stubbornness and not the cohesiveness from management to, the coaching staff that they seem to have now. And so I think that as long as there's decision made after the season about Will Levis, whether he goes in the right direction or wrong direction, I think Brian Callahan's going to be given the opportunity to get his own quarterback in here.
Okay.
Because I think that was part of the deal coming in. I think everybody knew, at least in management, that this could be a little bit of a rebuild, even though you go get some of the pieces that look good on paper. It all kind of came down to, does Will Levis make it or not? And that's why they're giving him the rest of the season, because I think after that, the decision has to be made. And as long as Brian Callahan can get this team headed in the right direction with a new quarterback, if that is the case next year, I don't see her giving him the axe this year by any means.
Well stated. All right, Kayla, before I turn you loose, college football, I guess for folks in Nashville, is a nice respite from the Titans. Vanderbilt's ranked. Oh my gosh! Even though after losing to Georgia State, they had to go to the fourth quarter to beat Ball State, but give them credit, they did. And then Tennessee knocks off Alabama, so the state of Tennessee was not good to the Crimson Tide this year, losing to Knoxville. But I imagine on your show, college football with the way the Titans are playing must be a hot topic right now, with not just Tennessee but with Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and, it always is because we're still, I know Knoxville is, a few hours away, but there are a lot of Vols fans that reside in Nashville. So there are a lot of those fans that listen to the station and call in when it comes to Tennessee. And they've been successful for the most part for the last few years under Josh Heupel. But, this year there is more excitement because, they beat Florida, who they hadn't done consistently. Hadn't beat them for a while, and now they were able to do that. Even though it's a bad Florida team, it's still a win against Florida. And then the next weekend you go in and beat your rival in Alabama, who Vols very much consider one of their biggest rivals. So, I think that the excitement has been building for the Vols, even though there are some concerns about maybe their offense and exactly what it is, especially in that first half. But when you go and beat Alabama, like you said, that gets excitement up no matter what. And for Vandy, doing that then with Vandy the week before or the two weeks prior to that, I mean, it has been different in terms of people's interest in college football, even on West End, which usually is not the case. For baseball, yes, certainly. But for football, Diego Pavia has just taken on a life of his own, and in a good way. He's pretty much been the identity and pretty much what this team has kind of formed into after their quarterback. So this weekend it'll be interesting. I mean, Texas is coming in. They just took a bad L, and so they're going to be hungry. Maybe not the best time for Vanderbilt to play them, but I do think you'll see them fight. And I still think that Vols-Vandy game at the end of the season will be really interesting.
Oh, it will. Listen, I'm happy for Vanderbilt fans. You know, they have to listen to all the jokes about their program and, you know, and it shouldn't be in the SEC and all of that. And, you know, it's I hate to, you know, disappointed they beat Alabama, but it's got to be great up there. All right, let everybody know how they can track Ramon, Kayla, and Will and your social media and all the different platforms that you're on.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, X. It's Akila Anderson TV. And you can also download our podcast, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, wherever you find your podcast. Lots of good stuff on there. We talk tons of college football. And like I said, we got a lot of Alabama fans here, too. So they call into the show often.
Yeah, I imagine it's been interesting here the last couple of days. So
I bet.
You know this state. It's different. Thank you. We appreciate you, Kayla.
Thanks so much, you guys.
All right, it's 10:34, and we're going to get to a break. We will entertain phone calls in the next segment on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, 205-342-904. Also, may get a little bit of that coach's audio from yesterday. A couple of comments that I might be able to play for you. And I'm still going to get into this Derrick Henry discussion on just how phenomenal it is what he's doing. So all that straight ahead. Also, to remind you, on Friday, I'll be live at the Innisfree Irish Pub. Fridays at the Free, and I'll be doing my Bama football trivia contest. We gave away that incredible Daniel Moore print this last week of the Roman Harper hit on the Tennessee fullback back in 2005. We'll be giving away another great gift courtesy of T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall coming up Friday on the Gary Harris Show at Innisfree Irish Pub. All right, we'll be right back with more of the program. Keep it dialed in at Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC.
The Alabama Securities Commission protects you from financial fraud. Anyone asking you for investment money must be licensed. You're careful with your money. Fraudsters aren't. Before you invest, call our hotline at 1-800-222-1253 to verify the licensing of the person making an offer and the product. Don't lose.
She's bundled her home and auto insurance with Progressive. Swish, Ace, Savings, TKO.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Are you receiving unemployment? Your benefits could be at risk. Here's how you can protect yourself and your benefits. Never respond to mail notifying you of a false claim in your name. Never answer a text message asking you to verify your account. And only respond to official Alabama Department of Labor's social media pages. Report fraud at labor.alabama.gov/fraud. Brought to you by the Alabama...
is free. Call 800-290-1569. That's 800-290-1569. Again, 800-290-1569.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. And before we talk a little bit more about Derrick Henry and what he's doing and how phenomenal it is, we're going to visit with Ellis on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. Hey, good morning, Ellis.
Hey, I called at the right time, didn't I?
You did, buddy. You don't have to rush.
I'll see if I can keep it up.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Let's do it. One of my favorite topics. I promise you that.
Ooh, me too. You know, and we're blessed to get to see somebody like that on the field. You know,
we are because he is a. Now that you brought it up, and I was going to talk about him anyway, it's perfect because he is a. I still think this sounds silly because he won the Heisman Trophy. He was the all-time leading high school rusher in the history of high school football until recently when somebody passed it. He's rushed for 2,000 yards in high school, 2,000 yards in college, and 2,000 yards in the NFL. Nobody else has ever done that in the history of football. So he's recognized, but I still think he is, and I think that's going to change with the now that he's into his 30s, what he's going to accomplish. But I still don't think he's mentioned with Jim Brown and Earl Campbell and Eric Dickerson and Barry Sanders and Gale Sayers and O.J. Simpson, and he should be. He is he is not just the best running back of his generation. He is an all-time great. He is one of the greatest running backs in the history of the National Football League. And what he's doing now at his size, he's not done. But, I mean, he is an all-time great. And same thing in college. You know, I don't think he's mentioned with Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, and some of these other guys. And he should be. In fact, that season he had in 2015 is one of the greatest college football seasons any running back's ever had. And so as crazy as it sounds, I don't think he quite is on the Mount Rushmore where he should be, but I think that's going to change because I think what he's going to do over the next 2 or 3 years with the Ravens at this point in his career is going to separate him from a lot of other running backs that have ever played the game.
Yeah. And you know, the people, the Dallas fans are like dying right now because that's where from what I've heard and seen, that's where he really wanted to go first was to Dallas. But
I think he had a lot of interest. I think that he lives there in the off season. I think that and the mystique of playing for the Cowboys and the Cowboys, you know, needed a running back. I think that Derrick Henry would have been very interested in joining Dallas, but Jerry Jones did not reach out, and Jerry Jones has said they didn't feel like they had the salary structure for him. But it worked out better because now he's with a team that I think he can win a Super Bowl with.
Yeah.
And with Lamar and the other weapons that they have, he is just he's in a great situation. You know, they didn't even hardly run him in the first half last night. I think he had 4 or 5 carries, and then in the fourth quarter, and you know, he just exploded, and that's what he's capable of doing.
Well, that's what he always done when he was at Alabama. You know, the third or fourth quarter you put him in. I mean, it was just like you turned the switch on, and I mean, it was just to the end zone.
Yep, that's what closers do, man. Closers close it out, and that's who he is, and that's what he does. And yeah, he's special, man. And he's, you know, as a lot of guys I've covered, they've come through here. Great quarterbacks, wide receivers, defensive players, and I do a Bama in the NFL segment every week on TV and on social media. But, you know, if you ask me my favorite former Alabama player in the NFL right now, it's Derrick Henry.
Oh, yeah, by far. I follow him on Instagram and stuff and get to watch his rigorous workouts that he does.
Oh, yeah. This is incredible.
Insane it is, I'm telling you. I mean, a normal person couldn't even attempt to even do that.
You're right. He's not normal. He is not he's not a normal dude, man.
No. But I talk about Alabama, and then I know you got to go, but I'm just going to take it, like I said yesterday, one game at a time from here on out.
Well, that's all you can do. That's really all you can ever do. And, you know, fans, sometimes when you've been as successful as Alabama has, we get ahead of ourselves. I do it too. You start looking at, you know, and you start saying, well, you know, SEC championship, top 4 in the playoff, all that. And you forget it's a process to get to that point. And this team has stubbed its toe, and there's no other way around that. And the margin for error, like I've talked about this morning, is gone. Now, listen, they're capable of winning these next 5 games. I think Alabama's talented enough. I think they could get on a run. But that's what they're going to have to do for this season to be the season that people had envisioned. If not, they lose another game or 2, and you're going to be playing in a bowl game and sitting out a 12-team playoff when we all just kind of took it for granted, I think, before the season that Alabama would be in the 12-team playoff. And if they're not, it's going to be disappointing. There's no other way around that. So that's where we're at.
I just couldn't understand it. You know, we had 2, 3, Tennessee gave us 2 or 3 turnovers, and we couldn't score on.
The first half when Alabama lost that game, you know, they got outscored. You know, Tennessee scored 24 points in the second half, in the first half, Alabama should have had at a minimum of a 2-score lead and maybe a 3-score lead. They could have been up, 17-0 maybe in that game, 14-0, 13-0, and it would have been much harder for Tennessee to come back and win. When Tennessee was able to get to the locker room only down 7-0, I think they felt pretty good about their chances at home.
Yes, we let them hang around. We let them hang around, but like I said, one game at a time from here on out. So I'm my focus is on Missouri.
That's where it ought to be. This is the biggest game of the year, and if Alabama wins it, you go into that bye week with some positive mojo, chance to kind of calibrate and get ready to go to LSU. If you lose this game, going into that bye week, whoo, Lord, it's going to be rough around here. So, big game. All right, Ellis, see you on Friday.
Big game, no time.
All right, buddy. 10:45 here on the Gary Harris Show. One segment to go here on the program. Lunch is right around the corner, and a lot of neat restaurants that I'm associated here with on the program. Certainly one of them is Brick and Spoon. Breakfast, brunch, and lunch every day until 2 o'clock, 7 days a week, downtown at Temerson Square. Man, I love that place, and I've got my own Gary Harris special, Chase. You're a regular one. And, of course, it's not on the menu, but you just have to tell them how you want it. Just in case everybody wants to. They've seen me put some pictures out of it. It's one pancake, but instead of syrup and butter, I go with 2 strawberry marmalades, sliced strawberries, and some whipped cream. I make a strawberry pancake. Then I have a sliced banana, 2 eggs scrambled, and then my meat, whether it be the Canadian bacon sausage or regular bacon, I'll rotate that. But that's the Gary Harris special. So if you go in and tell them that's what you want, I love that. Now, listen, calorie wise, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's really, really good. All right, we'll be back to wrap up the show. One final segment. Phone lines are open on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline 205-342-9904.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up starting at 2 p.m., we're going to take your scores for Alabama and the Missouri Tigers. We're going to move past a little bit of Tennessee. Still some things we're going to clean up with that. We'll talk to Mike Detillier, and we'll take your scores on a Southern Alhambra score prediction day starting at 2 on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program.
For you, call 800-8000 or visit mezwins.com. I've got this.
No representations made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow truck, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadway.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's move over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside.
On your home for Alabama basketball.
Presented in part by BMW of Tuscaloosa and by Pearl River Resort in Choctaw, Mississippi.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me. It paid for me to be the first person in my family to go to school. That education got me to the first day at my dream job, which I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job and the home loan benefits I got from the Army National Guard helped me buy my first house.
100% satisfaction and appointments set around your schedule. Give us a call for all your steam cleaning needs, 205-553-9460. Houston Hydro Steam. Quality work you can stand on.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny sky today with a warm afternoon, the high 81. Clear tonight, the low 53. Tomorrow, sunny with a high at 82. Then very warm on Thursday and Friday. The sky's sunny both days. Highs between 83 and 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 66 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
All right, it's 10:50. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. One final segment before we call it a day and make way for T-Town Sports Daily with Wyatt Fulton. Chase will be along for that program as well. We're not going to worry about getting any sound because we only got about 6 minutes left in the show. And we like to get to some of those clips from the coaches if we have time. But when the press conferences are on Monday, by the time we get to Tuesday, they're a little bit outdated anyway. And it's one of those things, we'll use them when we need them. But we've been able to fill up the show fine last couple of days without any extra audio. But I will say this. One of the things that came out of the Nick Sheridan press conference was and I should have just sent Chase that one clip because I ran it on the sports last night about the 4th and 1 on the quarterback sneak when Jalen snuck it. And you may have already got that clip ready. It's anyway, they made the first down, but there was the images out there in the video of Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams looking like they were shooting jump shots and mimicking jump shots, and people were trying to figure out what was going on. I'm still not sure what that was. Some type of decoy. What's another term for decoy? When you want to give people the illusion that something's going on, but it's what's that term?
That's pretty much a decoy, kind of like something that's not going on that you should be worried about.
Yeah, there's another term, though, too. But anyway, no one was sure what that added to the play. So, and hopefully we have the question, too. A reporter asked the question of Nick Sheridan and what was going on there, and here's that response.
TV broadcast showed Ryan and Jeremy pretending to shoot a basketball on the other side of the field. Is that part of the design of the play or just something spontaneous?
Yeah, you're talking about the quarterback sneak. Yeah, there's nothing on the field that we're not coaching. So that's how I answer that.
Okay, diversion was the term I was trying to think of. I couldn't. I finally thought I was trying to think of it yesterday. I don't know if that was meant to be some type of diversion. And they got the first down barely. I mean, that might have been the one call that went favorable for Alabama the entire day. I thought the spot was, helped Alabama there, but it was weird looking. And you've seen it on. You can find the play and see it on the video, or you've seen it. The clips of it all over social media. You got Bernard and Ryan Williams looking like they're shooting, a jump shot behind the play. And so a lot of people have had a hard time figuring that out. But you heard Nick Sheridan say there, they don't do anything on the field that they're not coached to do. So interesting, situation there for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, since we don't have any phone calls, let's get to a couple more clips since we've kind of opened up that door. And let's stay with Sheridan because the offense is, a lot of people are questioning what's happening with the offense. And let's go ahead and get this one in on Jalen Milroe's performance so far this season. That's what Nick Sheridan was asked about on Monday.
Play in this last game, and what do you do to kind of keep his confidence up after the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think none of us coached or played well enough in the game Saturday, and that starts with me. Our ability to execute consistently and take advantage of the opportunities that we were presented. We obviously fell short in that in those spots, and it's all of us. We're all involved in that. And Jalen's an extremely confident player. I have no concerns about that at all. His preparation creates that confidence for him, and I know he'll get back to work this week, just like the rest of our players will.
All right. I thought that's a fair answer. Listen, so much discussion about Jalen Milroe and whether a change should be made at quarterback. Jalen Milroe is the starting quarterback for Alabama football, whether some people like that or not. And he was a Heisman candidate earlier in the year. There were people talking about him being maybe the first quarterback taken in the draft. He's a talented player. It's not always smooth sailing for any football player. He's hit a rough patch, but he has shown in the past, he's proven what he's capable of. And if he starts playing better again, this Alabama team, like I said, they could be a load for people. They could still be a team to reckon with. And I think Jalen Milroe is going to have a good game against Missouri. I really do. And he'll need to. He'll need to play better. There's no doubt about that. So anyway, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We appreciate the interaction. We appreciate you, Chase, for your great work. Appreciate everybody out there listening. A reminder to catch me on TV tonight with the local sports and with Rodney Orr for Tider Insider TV at 6:30 on WVUA 23. Again, an update. I know we're not on Spectrum or Xfinity, Comcast, Dish, Direct. I know people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. We're still working to get that transmitter fixed, and hopefully it'll be soon, and we'll be back on everywhere. You can watch us at WVUA23.com, live stream, or download the WVUA 23 app. All right, T-Town Sports Daily is coming up next with Wyatt Fulton and Chase Brumfeld. That'll be followed by the Miller's Edge from noon until 2. Fowler will take you home with the game from 2 until 6, and we'll crank it right back up in the morning with the Martin Houston Show, 6 until 7. Wimp and Barry inside the locker room, 7 until 9. And I'll be back tomorrow morning for the Wednesday edition. Matt Coulter will join me for the NASCAR report, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning on the Gary Harris Show. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
For listening to